Let's go to Beirut and speak to Mr. Maher Salloum. He's a political analyst and ambassador for peace with the UPF on the situation in Syria. Mr. Salloum, thanks for being with us. Looking at that report of the the United Nations General Assembly adopting that resolution against Syria. Now, the Syrian government has been accusing those who favor that resolution, including specifically Saudi Arabia and Qatar, of rather bowing to the pressures that they're receiving from Western states. Now, what do you think is behind that resolution?
Well, it could be the resolution has been administered or engineered by the West, specifically by the United States and the European, actually. And for sure, their Arab allies, specifically the Saudi Arabians and the Qatari Emir himself and his Prime Minister, Hamad bin Jassim, who's been actively enrolled supporting such a measure by the United Nations in order for them to get on with a new resolution that not only will condemn Syria, but will hopefully, to their own needs, actually, and the West's needs and wants, to oust President Bashar Assad from his office and change the system accordingly and more democratically according to the West, vis-a-vis actually the democratic measures that have been through decades so far under the United Nations umbrella and under the Geneva, unfortunately, charter or conditions for imposing human rights, values, and conditions upon the Arab states and the Arab world today.
So, Mr. Salloum, basically, when Syria says that countries like Qatar, for instance, are financing these armed groups, are giving weapons to these armed groups to create violence inside of Syria, do you think now, looking at the situation that the President Assad there is facing, that he is going to be able to contain this violence?
He will contain this violence in case the people will assist him, and he has been showing enough support by his own people so far. About 60 to 70% population of the Syrian Republic is for Bashar, is pro-Bashar al-Assad so far. And we have witnessed these events or popular actually support through the streets of Damascus and Aleppo and major cities inside Syria. But Bashar al-Assad cannot continue unless he has enough regional and international support, and this has been shown due actually by Russia and China and major nations such as the Islamic Republic of Iran and even Lebanon and even Iraq, the neighboring country, have supported to a certain extent the regime inside Syria today, or the president actually himself.
So basically what is happening at the United Nations with the very full support of the United States, Britain, these Arab League members headed by Qatar and Saudi Arabia, do you think that this is more about bringing some kind of regime change inside of Syria or preparing the ground for a kind of military even intervention?
Definitely. What you said in the end, this is true. I think they are preparing a certain type of a military intervention, but they want an umbrella for that, or they need a certain resolution that they can push through, just like they did the Americans back in 2003 when they invaded Saddam Hussein and the Iraqis actually inside the state of Iraq. They want a certain reason to support their base actually, or their instinctive measures right now. They want to destroy Bashar al-Assad. They want to get rid of him as soon as possible due to their own interests, national and strategic interests in the Middle East. I meant the United States, the Europeans, and as well the Saudis and the Qataris so far, because Syria has not shown enough support to those nations in the Gulf and whether their own national and pan-Arab or Arab interests in the Middle East. Specifically inside Lebanon during the reign of Prime Minister Saad ad-Din Hariri. So they are willing actually to cooperate with Turkey and certain nations in the region, such as Turkey I mentioned, and enough states such as Jordan, the Kingdom of Jordan so far, and the will and the United Nations conditions or imposing any resolution against Syria, not only condemning, but having an umbrella for those forces to attack Syria and oust the regime of Bashar al-Assad.
And Mr. Salloum, just briefly before we leave you, if that military intervention does happen, what will be the consequences? If you could also briefly share your thoughts with us on that.
Sure. The consequences will not be tolerated by anyone, even the United States, because Russia is highly involved here The Russian battleships in Tartus, they are still close to the waters of Syria, and Syria is a strong ally to the Russian Republic or the Federation, and a strategic ally to the Islamic Republic of Iran. So I hope not, but a regional war can be instigated in such a measure when they have the umbrella by the United Nations to attack the Syrian Republic or the National Syrian Republic under Bashar al-Assad.
Mr. Maher Salloum, political analyst and ambassador for peace with the UPF, joining us there live from Beirut. Thank you very much, sir.